This is Fred Beck and Fred Beck Fighting. I'm joined over Zoom by the first time ever, Nakisa Badarian. Nakisa, I appreciate your time today. How are you?
I'm great, Fred. How are you?
I'm not doing too badly. It's always nice when you get to interview someone for the first time. I know you don't do too many interviews, so I'm appreciative of this. How was Abu Dhabi though? A nice little break.
It was great. It's always good to be back in the UAE. I lived there as a teenager for a couple of years, worked there as a professional from 2007 to 2011, and being back to my second home is always a great time.
Was it a bit of work as well, or just was it nice just to chill out for a little bit? I think you were the F1 there as well, weren't you?
It was definitely more work than chilling out. I didn't stay for the F1. I had to fly to London for some meetings, but it's a great city with lots of different things to do, both culturally, entertainment wise, shopping wise, hotels, restaurants. So it's yeah, you find ways to enjoy yourself even if you're working.
No, I've been there once as well. I went there once to the F1 last year, and it is a pretty cool place to be. Am I right in saying you had a meeting with Amir Khan out there? I think he said in one of his interviews that he was seeing you and Jake.
We were supposed to meet Amir, but it ultimately didn't happen in the way that it should have.
Oh, okay. Well, next time then. He gets around Amir, so I'm sure you'll catch him another time. We'll go straight into it though. MVP is a show this weekend though, the return of Warner Walton, and you've also just signed a double Olympic champ. Can you tell me a little bit about it?
Sure, we have our most valuable prospects 10 show happening this evening live on DAZN globally. Wana, who we signed a little bit over a year ago, is going into his third fight, and we expect a great performance from him. He's only 18 years old. He's still a very young man, and the future is very bright. His platform, his reach is very differentiated, similar to when I met Jake Paul 4.5 years ago. I knew he has the ability to become a superstar if he performs in the ring. A lot of times fighters perform brilliantly in the ring, but they don't have the ability to connect with fans outside of the ring. So that's something that Wanda possesses that's very, very rare. And so we're excited about that. And then when you look at Tam Thibault, like the perfect fit for MVP, a super accomplished female athlete who is impactful inside and outside of the ring. And tonight she makes her debut under men's rules, 3-minute rounds. First ever pro debut for a female boxer to do that. And that just speaks to how we want to continue to evolve the sport and create equality for females, for boxers, in terms of treatment of promoter to athlete and all of the above.
I know your PR guy, Michael's just telling me she's doing 3-minute rounds, which I was quite surprised by, but also pleased to hear that she's kind of pushing forward in that sector. So no, yeah, very impressive stuff indeed.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of people say, oh, the 2-minute rounds are more exciting. If they're more exciting, then we should make the men's fights 2-minute rounds. But guess what? The men's knockout rates or TKO rates are leaps and bounds higher than the women's. And a big part of that is that within the standard framework of women's boxing, you just don't have enough time to actually break down your opponent so it results in an exciting finish, right? By the time you're ready and you're setting up and your shots are landing, the round is over. So we think it's an important component of making the sport more exciting. But if the world thinks 2-minute rounds are more exciting, we would also be supportive of the men going to 2-minute rounds. Indifferent.
No, it's good, nice and even. We like to see. Jake Paul will also be there as well. I saw his video hyping it up, walking off his private jet. Fight news for Jake Paul coming soon, I presume.
Jake is going to be there. Amanda's going to be there. We have a few NFL stars there. We have an NBA playing there. Archangel's coming. So it's going to be quite a great crowd for kind of Juana's return. In terms of Jake, we're looking at him returning anytime between April and July and evaluating different alternatives now.
I saw that we'll just go straight into it, kind of address the elephant in the room here. We've seen the Jake and Tommy Fury going back and forth on Twitter. Jake Paul doesn't typically go back and forth with people on Twitter unless there's a reason behind it, unless there's a fight looming. Tommy pulled out with the fight with Darren Till, saying he's afraid of getting kicked in the face, which is a very odd way to put out something, but each their own. Is that a rematch there, Tommy and Jake? You guys might have stolen Tommy Fury there.
So first and foremost, we're partners with DAZN, and we hate to see situations where they are investing time, effort, energy, and money into an event, and then a fighter I assume surprisingly withdraws from a big moment for our distribution partner. Tommy did that with us twice in the past when we were with Showtime, so we know how that feels. I don't know what his contractual relationship is with the zone. So we've had zero discussions with him around anything to do with Jake Paul, other than them going back and forth with each other on Twitter or X. What is true, and Jake has stated, is we offered him a massive payday to fight Jake Paul on Netflix, and they effectively said it wasn't enough money. And I am highly skeptical that he was getting paid more than $8 million to fight Darren Till, who, amazing man, very entertaining, good fighter, never sold the pay-per-view in his life, never drove, a big event in his life. So I can't kind of equate what's really happening there with Tommy and John, but they know where we're at, and if they ever want to be realistic, and if they don't have legal problems with the zone, we're happy to discuss that rematch. That's something that Jake wants to do at some point just to make things right from his perspective.
Okay, good. Okay. So how do you kind of cleared it up? I know that a lot of rumors are flying around in the last few days, but do you think that is the real reason Tommy Fury pulled out? I mean, it seems quite an odd reason against Darren Till, an arguably easier fight than Jake Paul.
I have no idea, to be honest with you, man. They're unpredictable, which kind of is what makes them interesting, I guess. But he pulled out of, fighting Jake Paul the first time. He pulled out of fighting Jake Paul the second time, and now he's pulled out of fighting Darren Till. So it doesn't surprise me. It's just disappointing for the sport and the fans that were looking forward to seeing that.
No, certainly. Hopefully, we can get it sorted out soon. One of the questions I asked you and Jake in the post press conference, as I was saying, it's almost a bittersweet moment for you guys sitting up there in the post press conference after all the success you had and the 65 million people watching live. I mean, I take it people watching their families, so it's probably more like 120, 25 million, 150 million people.
There was
Yeah, what?
65 million households who
Mm.
had Netflix on during the fight. And so if you take a very conservative view of it, there was, 108 million people watching, which is less than a factor of two. The reality is there's probably three or four people per household watching, so that multiple should be higher, but Netflix, wants to be very conservative in how they state numbers.
No, certainly. But if we're being realistic, probably around the 120 mark, which is insane to think about it from that perspective. I asked you the question. I'd like to ask it again. Now we've got more time to talk on Zoom. Obviously, post press conferences, you've only got a limited amount of time. Was it a little bit of a bittersweet moment after kind of all the hype, you'd calmed down, all the adrenaline had gone away. About a week later, you're kind of like, damn, how on earth do we top that?
Not at all. I mean, it was an amazing moment to get to 3 years after starting MVP, right? Someone asked me this earlier this week, like, did you expect to do that? I said we expected to be disruptive. I said we expected to bring more attention to women's boxing. And I expected for us to do big events. That's why I started working with Jake to begin with, because I knew he had a differentiation in terms of platform and reach. But did I think we were going to partner with the biggest media company in the world? Did I think that we were going to break every record in US history for streaming? Did I think we're going to put on the biggest women's sporting event in US history? No, I never thought that was going to happen 3 years later. So we felt a massive sense of accomplishment and gratitude for getting to that point. And then the Monday after, we started working on what's next, and we feel very confident that we're going to have events that meet or exceed that event over the next 2 years. And we feel very confident that women's boxing is in a great place. And the trilogy of Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor is going to have the entire world focused on women's boxing as headliners without being under Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. So we're super amped, man. We're charged up. We haven't stopped since November 15th. It's been full on.
You don't overwork yourself though, do you?
I don't know about overwork. As long as you're healthy and you're happy and you're adding value to the world, like, you got to go after it, because life is not guaranteed. Tomorrow is not for sure. And so we want to take advantage of opportunities to create legacy, to create impact, to disrupt, right? Oftentimes people just look at, oh, it's a money play. If it was a money play, we would have put Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson on pay-per-view. We probably would have made three times the money. But we wanted to really do something special for the entire sport of boxing. More people watched boxing that night than they have in the past 5 years combined, probably, right? Across all events. So that was the purpose. That was the impact that was felt.
No, certainly. It was pretty insane to be there, to be a part of at least. And especially Amanda Serrano and Katie Taylor fight. How many people were talking about that was insane. Especially, I was just on on Twitter, or X, as you now call it. And yeah, that was going blue and viral. Can you name me a few opponents you guys have you kind of come up with, Jake, when you can't sit down at the table, you've had your meetings, and I'm guessing you guys have written down about four or five different opponents who Jake could fight next. Can you list them off for me, Nakisa?
There's nothing to list off, but as you've probably seen, a lot of the prominent boxers in the world have called out Jake Paul, right? So whether it's Ryan Garcia, whether it's Daniel Dubois, whether it's Beterbiev, whether it's Gervonta Davis, um, Chavez Jr., even Canelo Alvarez, I saw this week or last week, whenever it was, kind of left the door open to fight Jake Paul. Jake's in a unique position where there's so many different options for us to consider. And, we're doing that slowly to make sure we take the right next step. I think, if you look at Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, that fight made so much sense for Jake to do. And I don't care what anybody says, like he was fighting one of the greatest fighters of all time and an opportunity to do that. When there's a video on MVP's accounts, on Jake's account, 4 years ago, him in a bus asking Jay Leon, I had a crazy idea. Imagine I fought Mike Tyson. And Jay Leon was like, no, like you can't do that. He'd kill you. Right. And then he turns around and he's like, that'd be crazy. And it happened. He did it. And you can't discount, man, like walking into a stadium of 73,000, 72,000, whatever people and maintaining your legs, maintaining your composure, and going out there and seeing a bull come at you. A bull that you know is going to get tired, right? But a bull is coming at you and having to be the matador and survive that for those first couple of rounds is so impressive. And it sets him up for massive success going forward.
No, certainly. 73,000 people was pretty impressive. But it's interesting the Canelo's perspective of it.
Mike Tyson's biggest live event, right? More people were in the building that night than ever. Mike Tyson's biggest gate in his entire career ever. Biggest viewership of Mike Tyson's career ever, times multiple fold. And that's because it was a great matchup. It was a great combination, right? Two dance partners make the biggest fights. Floyd Mayweather had a lot of good fights. He had some big fights, but really had two massive fights because he had the right dance partner. This sport is all about who your dance partner is. And as you build your name, you can hold an event by yourself. You can fight a Ryan Borland and sell out, who's a much more experienced boxer than Jake, but has no platform, has no recognition. You can fight our Andre August and do big numbers, but really you need the right dance partner, and Jake and Mike had that together. What were you saying about Canelo? Sorry to interrupt you.
Well, I was saying, like a few years ago, Canelo would have kind of brushed it off, but now he seems to come more and more accepting. But Canelo fights at 167.5 pounds, about 168. What would you do about weight if you were going to make the Canelo fight, Jake?
Yeah, so I would say, look, I think part of when we fought Mike Tyson, part of that strategy was exactly what's happening, right? All these other boxers, even though if they may not verbalize it, see two things. A, oh, this punk came into our sport and disrespected our GOAT, so I need to go and make that right. So that's worked, right? All these guys want a piece of Jake Paul, and I think for Canelo, that's probably part of the thinking, right? Like he came in and did that to Mike, one of my heroes. I'm gonna punish him. And then to your question around weight, the reality is most of these fighters cut a lot of weight. So this whole notion of, Jake Paul is a weight bully. No, actually, Jake doesn't cut much weight, right? That he was cutting a lot of weight, going to 185 historically, but Jake walks around 205. So when he fights at 200 pounds, that's his like close to natural weight. Canelo Alvarez walks around 190 pounds. So he's cutting 22 pounds when he's fighting. So to me, the weight discrepancies is not really something that we
Okay.
think of.
Okay. And then there's a couple more things. Then you've got to head out in
And by
about.
the way, Canelo Alvarez is like top five boxer in the world, right? Current top five boxer in the world. So if Canelo is worried about Jake's weight, tells you a lot about Jake Paul. Because if you really think Jake Paul's not that good at boxing, not that capable, what are you worried about his weight for? If you're Canelo Alvarez, you should go in there, dance around him, pepper him up, go to the body and put him to sleep in 1 or 2 rounds.
Certainly, we'll see. I mean, blimey, the numbers Mike Tyson pulled, we'll see the numbers he will do against Canelo. Just one more thing, I know you gotta let you go in just a second. Um, what's stopping the KSI Jake Paul fight from happening, Nakisa? Let's get to the bottom of it right now. What do you think's stopping it? Why can we not see it in 2025? I mean, the fight's huge.
I think first and foremost, for the record, and I've said this before, I think very highly of KSI. I think he's um, a very smart businessman, a great marketer, one of, one of the best in history in terms of creating a brand, creating an audience, and monetizing off of it. I mean, you look at that song that he had come out, The Thick of It, like one of the worst songs you've ever heard, but yet one of the most successful runs of the chart, short, brief period, but because he knew how to turn that around and make people engage and listen to the song. So I think, you have to respect him, and I do. And I actually, I haven't spent much time with him other than once when Jake fought Anderson Gibb. But I think, he's a great, great young man. I think he's 32 or 33 years old at this point. So maybe he's not a young man, he's a man. In terms of why the fight's not happening, Jake Paul's a cruiserweight. If they called tomorrow and said, we're ready to do the fight at cruiserweight, which means you can weigh in anywhere from 176 to 200 pounds, we would make that fight immediately, right? No problem. But all this talk around cut down, I saw something about coin flips. They offered us coin flips. No one offered MVP a coin flip. I think there was, discussions had with multiple people that aren't related to MVP around that. But what are we doing a coin flip? This is a serious sport, and Jake competes at cruiserweight. Now, tomorrow, if Canelo Alvarez said, we want to do this fight, but we're only going to do it at 185 pounds, I would look at that and say, Jake, you should really consider this because it's Canelo Alvarez. He's the biggest name in the sport. He's at the top of the sport. Um, it, you know, it warrants kind of going against what you've gotten comfortable into to make this happen. But I also think Canelo would never do that because Canelo's got real kahunas and knows that he doesn't need to have Jake Paul cut to fight Jake Paul and beat Jake Paul in his mind. That's what we're dealing with here. Cruiserweight is 176 to 200 pounds. You can weigh in anywhere within that. Make a cruiserweight fight, and the world will see Jake Paul versus KSI.
So it's not your mam's issue or KSI and Jake issue, it's just the weight is the issue here then.
I have like nothing against misfits and mams in terms of trying to do this, right? It's irrelevant. We're partners with the zone. They're partners with the zone. We have a boxing product. They have an entertainment product. We have a boxing audience, and we're focused on kind of helping the sport expand in different ways. They have a great audience that does different things. We would love to make that fight at cruiserweight, and I know Jake would do it. Absolutely, of course.
How does the fight go if it does finally happen at cruiserweight then? How do you see it playing out?
Listen, I can't speak to KSI's skill set, right? He's never actually been in the ring, uh, other than with Tommy Fury, with anyone that you can say this is an accomplished fighter of some sort. This is someone who's been in the ring in the biggest moments. So I couldn't tell you how hard or easy of a fight it would be for Jake. I'm 100% confident Jake would win. I'm very confident when Jake touches his chin a few times that just like he went down against Logan Paul, he'd go down harder against Jake Paul. But I also give KSI credit. He's an unorthodox fighter. He obviously works his ass off in everything that he does. And he's not going to come in there to lose. He's going to come in there to stamp his legacy, right? And say, I beat Jake Paul. So, I'm not sitting here saying for sure it happens one way or another in terms of the outcome. I feel great about Jake's chances against KSI, but I think it'll be a great fight when it happens.
No, certainly. I can't wait. I can't wait, Nakisa, and get that fight made. Just one last
Listen,
thing.
man, cruiserweight, easy. Fight's done.
What weight would Jake Paul come in at?
In a cruiserweight fight, he coming to
Yeah,
200.
200, blimey. Maybe
Yeah.
not then. Maybe the fight won't happen. Hopefully, fingers crossed. One
What
last
do you,
thing.
what do you mean? It's a cruiserweight fight. You can come in at
I know
176.
KSI doesn't fight at 200, unfortunately. I wish he did, but he
But
doesn't.
that doesn't, I guess I think you're missing the point. It's not fighting at 200. It's a cruiserweight fight. There's a reason there's a weight band, right? You don't have to fight at 200. You can fight at 185, 190, 192, 193. Your opponent can be 176 to 200 pounds. As I said, Canelo is never going to, I don't believe, say to Jake Paul, you have to cut to fight me. Because he has the kahunas to say, great, I'm going to go in there and beat this dude up, irrespective of the weight. Again, Canelo walks around at 190 pounds, is my understanding. But the the discussion of it's never going to happen because KSI isn't at 200 just means you don't want to make the fight. That's okay. But there's no reason, there's no desire for Jake Paul to cut weight to fight KSI, right? To cut weight more than he does to 200 pounds. No desire. Now, having said that, if KSI showed up and said, here is a guaranteed $100 million for Jake Paul, then sure, like that's equal to other opportunities that we have, then we consider that. But let's be clear, we're the A side here. We're putting on the biggest events in the world, and no one's come to us with that kind of offer.
Maybe Abu Dhabi, maybe Qatar, maybe the Middle East, or the guys who do those offers, but who knows?
And I'm fully supportive of you, young man, for the great work that you do. I appreciate you taking the time to talk with me, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you,
Awesome.
guys.
Awesome. Thanks very much, Nakisa. Thanks very
Thank
much,
you.
Michael. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next MVP show.